talking about launching this, we knew that May would be the month to start. So, by me saying that we're doing this way ahead of May. And there are two subjects that really hit home in May. One, of course, is Mother's Day. And the other one is Memorial Day. And we're going to talk about both of those things in the first few little sessions we have together. When I think about Mother's Day, I have to first think about the mother that gave birth to me. My mother and my uncle, and obviously biased opinion, was the best mother in my generation that God ever made. And the best one in my son's generation was the woman I married 35 years ago. Best two mothers I've ever had. Now, mothers teach lessons. We know this. I started learning very early. For example, mother promised me a whooping one day. Now, if mama told you was going to get a whooping, what I learned was you fixed to get that whooping. I also learned you might not get it when she says. Y'all laugh at me now. Something I was supposed to get a whooping for. And I didn't get it. And I didn't get it. And I didn't get it. And it was several days later. I couldn't have been more than 4, 5, 6 years old. We get home from somewhere one day, and I said to my mother, I said, Mama, you remember that thing you was going to whoop me for the other day? And she said, I do. I said, it's too late now, ain't it? What do you think, Neighbor? Was it too late? I think you know the answer to that. I learned the phrase bathroom revival right there. When Mother did it, it was Dr. Green, who Mama said had an aspirin that eased all pain. When it was Daddy, it was Brother Leather. So I learned real early. Don't ever think it's too late. Now, other lessons later on. And can I chase a rabbit right here? You young folks, bless your hearts. Y'all tickle me. When you go to get your driver's license, I'm going somewhere with this now. Stay with me. When you go to get your driver's license, you sit down at a computer and it starts asking you questions and you answer those questions. When you have answered enough questions to pass the test, it just cuts you off and says you passed. Have a good day. Honey, when I was coming along, you had to take a written test and you had to take the entire test. And if you didn't pass that test, you get you a 30-day permit to learn some more, and you come back and take that test again. But it gets better than that. I'm told now that in some places you can take a driver's test once a week if you want to. When I was coming up, you got one shot in 1 month to take that test one time. You flunk it, and you get a learner's permit that lasted another 30 days. And you come back 30 days later and take that test again. Now, I tell you that because of the way that I got my license. You'll be tickled at me, but I'm tickled at y'all more. I was one of those folks that said, I've studied my book, I passed my learner's test, I'm ready to take this driver's test. And Mama tried to tell me, I don't think you're ready yet. And I said, Mama, I can do this. I can do this. We went up to the county courthouse there in Chambers County, Alabama. And the people that gave it in that day and time, I had an old state trooper. He had to be retired, but he still wore that uniform, had that old wide brim hat, and he was a big, husky fellow, wide shoulders, had those dark horn-rimmed glasses on, and seemed to remember he had a cigar sticking out of his mouth. It wasn't lit, but it was there. Right there he wasn't on duty, right? And so here we go that day, and Mama took me up there to take my test, and I'm ready. I'm going to blow the doors off of this sucker, buddy. I get in the car, everything checks out, everything's blinking it's supposed to blink, brakes are working, horn, everything works, and the state trooper says, are you ready? I said, yes, sir. Now, on Courthouse Square, you got 4 corners, 4 red lights there in Lafayette, Alabama, you do. We backed out of the parking spot. We went to the first red light, and he said, turn right here. I turned right. We went to the next red light, and he said, turn right here, Mr. Ogle. We made that right-hand turn. He said, Mr. Ogle, just pull in right here. I've seen enough. I hadn't even made it around the courthouse. He said to me, he said, you hadn't drove in town much, had you? I just hung my head. Not only because he was right, but because I knew I had to go face Mama. I wasn't looking forward to it. Poor Mama. She just shook her head. Well, 30 days later, I went back up there and I said, I'm going to blow the doors off of this sucker this time. You hear me? I'm ready. I practiced everything to a fare thee well. I did parallel parking. I did 3-point turns. I pulled off a hill without backing up. I did everything I was supposed to do all the way to the end of that test and ran a red light. Bless him, Lord. He'll mean no harm. If old state trooper, what are you going to do? I just pull over. And I finally got up enough nerve to look at him. I said, 30 days? He's riding on that pad. He nodded his head. He said, yes, sir. I expect so. 30 days. And I had to go face Mom. I hated that. Poor Mama, she just shook her head. And you know, the third time I took that test, I finally passed the blooming test. I only made an 85. You would think, after taking it 3 times, I could have made 100 on it, but I made 85. I was just glad to have that test under my belt. Now I was ready to drive. I said, look, Mom, I waved that temporary paper at her. I said, look here, I can drive now. And Mama, as only mothers can do, she looked at me, she said, it's about time. I can still hear her saying that. And so out of the courthouse we went. We started for the car, and I started around as though I would drive her home. And she said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to drive, Mama. I'm going to drive us home. And I'm 18 years old, right? Getting my driver's license. I'm going to drive you home, Mama. She said, no, you're not. Get down in the car over here. And I said, oh, Mama. You don't, oh, Mama, my Mama. In my day, none of us did, but I did right there. And I soon found out why I was sitting in that passenger seat one more time. All the way down Highway 50, all the way back to Lynette. Mama was telling me about that heavy foot on the gas pedal, about looking at too many things when I was supposed to be driving. Mama was giving me her last instructions before she turned me loose on the roads of Chambers County, Alabama. There wasn't a thing I could do but sit there and listen. But it was fixing to get interesting. When you just get into Lynette, Alabama, you go down a hill and come up the other side. On the left-hand side, there's a car lot. On the right-hand side, there's a church. Just beyond, there's a red light. As my mama started down that hill, got almost to the bottom, she looked up in her rearview mirror. She said, oh, my soul. I said, what, Mama? She said, there's a police car coming up pretty fast, and he's got his lights on. I said, no what? By this time, we're cresting the top of the other side of that hill there, and she says, you know, I'm glad I'm fixing to turn here and go up into Lynette. He looks like he's in a hurry. He wasn't in that big of a hurry, because when she got in the turn lane, he just pulled right on in behind her. She said, he's still behind me. By now, I'm suppressing a smile. And I said, surely not. She said, he is. We made that left-hand turn at the red light. We started up towards the Lynette High School. There was a junkyard on the right-hand side there before you get to the school. She pulled it to the left and kept going. The police car got right in behind her. She said, I'm going to have to pull over and let him by. He's got to be, his lights are on. I know he's in a hurry. And she pulled over into that junkyard. Only problem was when she pulled over, so did he. And she said, you know, he pulled over behind me. And by now, I'm just trying not to laugh, trying so hard. Reckon, what did I do? She's looking at me. The police officer walks up, taps on the window, and it startled her a little bit. She rolled her window down. The police officer asked to see her driver's license. He showed him that. He said, Ms. Ogle, do you know why I pulled you over? And she said, well, I just was wondering. I just asked my son Reckon what did I do to get pulled over? Because he just got his driver's license. And I've been spending the whole way back from Lafayette trying to tell him a few things before I turn him loose on our roads. I want him to be ready. And so I just asking him, reckon what did I do? He said, well, Ms. Ogle, I'm afraid to speak just a little bit. Now, y'all, I'm hurting. My belly's hurting now. I'm an 18-year-old whose mama has given him the speech of her life. And now she's apparently being pulled over for the very same thing she's been telling me not to do. I have already bit blood out of my bottom lip at this point, but I'm not laughing yet. I saw a growing of hope come in her eyes, like, gotcha, sucker. She said, oh, but no, officer. I mean, like I said, I was telling my son, don't do this. And I looked at my speedometer the whole time. And not once did I get over 55 miles an hour. I was watching. I know I didn't get over that. And he just smiled. He said, yes, ma'am, you're absolutely right. That's what I clocked you at, 55 miles an hour. The only problem is you're doing it in a 45 mile an hour zone. Now, honey, I almost had to go on the floorboard right there. I bent over double and turned to the side a little bit. Did this again. I know I got blood inside of my lip. What's Mama going to say? She's busted. He writes her a ticket. Gives it to her. He even commented, bless his heart, he said, you sound like you got a bug. You need to get something for that. But y'all have a good day now. And then Mama said, you know what, thank you very much. Let's see. And, she was ready to get out of there. And I almost was under control. Almost. We got right in front of Lynette High School. She turned and looked at me right dead in my eyes with the most serious look you ever saw on your face. She said, you tell your daddy about this, I'll hurt you. Now, I'm sorry. I just tore the front floorboard up. I just banged my head against the window. I went back in the seat. I just lost all of my laughter, came out. Mama, she's just driving. Had just the hint of a smile on her face. She waited till I finally got myself under control. And she said, I meant business, I will hurt you. It was years before Daddy found out about that ticket. Me and Mama, we had many a laugh over that. But you know what? She did teach me a lesson that day. Cost her a little money. And she reminded me of it the day I got my first ticket. Never think it's too late. And never think you know it all. And always follow instructions. If that speed limit sign says 55, it don't say 60. And yes, I had to learn that the hard way over the years myself. And yes, my mother did let me know that she remembered that day when her son thought it was pretty funny that she got a speeding ticket. My mother knew how to laugh and have fun with anybody. We had laughter about that story for the rest of her life. My mother didn't have the easiest life. I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 things. She lost her mother 6 weeks before high school graduation and still kept a B average. Never slowed down a bit. It went from her graduating because she was supposed to graduate because her mother wanted all 3 of her youngins to have that high school education. And mother was the youngest. And she was going to make it. I would do better than that for you. When she lost her mother, and she was already out of school with the mumps on both sides, and had to bury her mother that way. I don't know how they did it. But you know what? My mother was cut from strong cloth. She was one of those that life will knock you down and she'll just get up and say, I'm not done yet. My mother played piano in every church she was ever in for 45 years plus until arthritis finally put her fingers so she could. And she could play it pretty too, you hear me? I can still hear her playing Keep on the Firing Line. She never quit. She had a card ministry to sick folks. She could be found anywhere where somebody was having trouble. At their house, or through a card, telephone call, sit and have a cup of coffee with anybody and just solve all the world's problems. For all the piano playing she ever did, though, she only wrote one song. Now, you can't read the words the way we got our little setup here, but this is a picture of my dear mother at my nephew's wedding. That's her handwriting. I was able to put this on a card. Maybe I'll have these available down the road somewhere if anybody'd like to have one. But here's a picture of a lady that could have quit any number of times. Instead of doing that, at the end of her life, and I can't prove this, but I believe this was written no more than a week to 10 days before she went home. She wrote this little song that's called While I'm Here. Listen to these words. In this world, my time is oh so short. I'm here today. Tomorrow, I'll depart. But while I'm here, Lord, help me kneel and pray. Let me live rejoicing every day. While I'm here, Lord, help me understand. Help me love, not hate my fellow man. Cause this war within my heart to cease. Let my life be an instrument of peace. While I'm here, the time just flies away. One more minute, one more hour, one more day. Just one word, one thought, a final deed. Then my life down here will be complete. Is that not powerful? Let me love, not hate my fellow man. What a lesson. In a world where hatred is a byword anymore. Love is not seen nearly like it was when I was growing up. You don't have yourself a really good church home, you probably don't see love like our Savior said we ought to show it. You may be an exception there. I think my mother had it figured out. I know this. She lived it out. So, Mother's Day is coming up. Let me ask you something, neighbor. What are you going to do about it? Is your mother still with you? Have you called her lately? Write her a letter. You can't send a passenger pigeon because they're all gone. Nowadays, we have electronic stuff. Facebook, emails. You have no excuse not to have some contact with your mother on Mother's Day. They're special and they're one to a customer. Once she's gone, as I know very, very well, there is no going back. Make sure you don't have any unfinished business. Make sure that you have some contact with your mother on Mother's Day. Plan ahead and go see her. Take her out to eat. Do like I used to do, Mother, and take her up to Walmart and give her a bucket and say, fill it up, darling. I guarantee you this. She will appreciate those things, those letters, those cards, those visits, more than every gift you ever wrap up at Christmas and put under the tree for her. Some of those will go unopened and unused. But the heart gifts, those are the ones that last till you take your last breath. You remember that, would you? I appreciate you being back. I hope you'll come back again. We're going to do 2 more Mother's Day stories, and we got a jam up Memorial Day story for you. I hope you'll stick around and be with me, okay? God bless you all for staying. We love you. Bye-bye.